Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's very exciting event with Emilie Plouchart, who is Four Seasons PR Director, specifically for their beautiful resort in Santa Barbara. Emilie, how are you?
I'm doing great, Dennis. How are you?
I'm great and so excited to discuss travel PR with you and hopefully some best practices and let our audience learn more about what it is you and your colleagues do. Can you tell us about yourself and your professional background?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the Director of Public Relations at Four Seasons Resort, the Biltmore, Santa Barbara. My background lies in agency. I started in agency PR back in 2008, and I've been working in the PR hospitality sphere for gosh, it's about 9 years, almost 10 years. This is my first in-house position, so a lot of agency experience, and I'm really enjoying the in-house position and the different look at PR.
Uh, You're right. It's a totally different world, and um, you know, Four Seasons is a unique brand. It's run in a unique way, as you've explained prior to this event, and it's well known and respected around the world. What specifically attracted you to the brand?
I over the years working with several clients across the United States, I found that service was really a key differentiator, something that couldn't be purchased but rather had to be implemented from the ground up. And Four Seasons has such an exceptional service standard. We live and die by the golden rule. Our founder, Isidore Sharp, um, was very passionate about treating others as he would want to be treated. And I really thought that working for a company where that their core beliefs were similar to mine made sense. I fell in love with the concepts. I fell in love with their philosophy, and it's really continued to grow over the years and develop in this really competitive market.
You're the director of PR at the Four Seasons Resort, the Biltmore specifically in Santa Barbara, and audience members, if you haven't been, stop everything you're doing and go. It's a beautiful resort. Can you walk us through the property?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are celebrating our 90-year anniversary, if you can believe it. It's crazy.
Wow.
We were built in 1927. The property has as you can imagine, over 90 years, an incredible history. We are a absolute icon in the destination of Santa Barbara. We are set a little bit. We're sort of not in Santa Barbara proper. We're in a smaller town, smaller proper called Montecito. Montecito is known for its really beautiful homes, very high-end clientele, and the resort is set right atop Butterfly Beach. And Butterfly Beach is one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. I think I can say that. We've received a lot of accolades, and the resort has 207 rooms. We have a lot of suites. We have about 40 suites. So the rooms are large. They're very inviting. We recently did a soft goods renovation where essentially we updated all of the interiors so the rooms feel really bright and light and open. We are owned by Mr. Ty Warner. Mr. Warner, otherwise known as the Beanie Baby legend, is an incredible owner and somebody who takes a lot of time and care into every detail of the property. So over the course of the past 10 years that he's owned it, he's put millions of dollars into the property, into renovating
Wow.
it, restoring it, and maintaining it. It's a very, very, very special place. It's really a Hollywood hideaway, what we like to call it.
Hollywood Hideaway, I love that. And Santa Barbara, correct me if I'm wrong, it's what, an hour and a half by car from Hollywood? How far is?
Yep, exactly. So, as I'm sure you all know, traffic is it really can change everything. We are on a very good day, an hour and 20 minutes from Beverly Hills, and on a not so good day, about 2 hours.
Okay. And as you mentioned, it's a storied property. It's an interesting property. Maybe you can walk us through your social media, because I think audience members, we have the Twitter up, but definitely, actually, you'll receive some social links, but I think you do a great job, particularly on Instagram. You have other socials. Maybe you can walk us through, how do you take sort of a traditional historic property and convert that into entertaining a digital audience?
Yeah, I mean, we are all about storytelling at the resort. We have so many incredible stories. Telling them across social media has actually proven to be pretty easy because of the incredible images that we've been able to archive over the years. Our property has a unique facet in that we have a in-house photographer by the name of Hal Boucher. He's 92 years old, and he still
Wow.
comes to his office every week. He has taken photos for the past 35 years for us of the resort, and we've been able to utilize those images via our social media channels and really continue to tell the story of this historic property through these incredible images, which is why I think Instagram is our strongest platform and has proven to really engage our guests, because this is a property that you have to see. Everyone knows Hawaii is beautiful, and everyone knows what Hawaii looks like, I think. Whereas Santa Barbara, I think people don't realize how much we look like the French Riviera, and why we are called, affectionately called the American Riviera. We are set right on it. So an interesting, um, we have an interesting look and feel, and I think we can really convey that via social media.
That's so interesting. I didn't think about that. That some destinations, Miami, Hawaii, many others, Aspen, you vaguely know what they look like, but Santa Barbara is famous, but more by name than that. That's really interesting. And you're 92 years old and he's still working. Good for him.
Yep, it's amazing.
Sounds like he needs some PR. What does it take to achieve excellence in travel PR?
Oh gosh, well, I think I'm still learning. What does it take? I think that being passionate is half the battle. If you love what you're talking about, I think that you're able to be excellent in the execution of travel PR for your client, for your for anything. In my experience, I've worked with properties that have really open-minded teams, and the managers and directors and executive teams are excited and interested to grow the business in unique and different ways. So I think being open-minded, travel trends are changing all the time. When I started in this industry, luxury travel was a huge of huge importance. And now we're hearing things like voluntourism, and we're talking a lot about responsible travel, and utilizing points and ways to get the most bang for your buck. So it's an evolving discipline, and something that you have to sort of stay on the pulse of in order to be good at it, I think.
Wow, that's fascinating. You're right that in a few short years things have evolved, and it's not that luxury is not important, but there are these new forms of tourism, which maybe the internet popularized, but you're right, you do have to be on top of that. As
Yep.
Director of Public Relations, can you walk us through your role and responsibilities? Perhaps there's a mix of traditional activities along with social media marketing, or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So um, I do a lot of what I do is representing the property. I am always thinking about that when I leave the house. How am I representing this incredibly prestigious property? So whether that be through like-minded brand partnerships, which is something I've gotten heavily involved in, um, or it be pitching media with relevant stories. My job is to represent this property in the best possible way and really understand its, um, our areas of strength and our areas of need. Being hyper aware of who is our traveler, who is coming to our property, and then promoting that property appropriately to that audience. I I have a wonderful digital marketing manager on my team who handles a lot of the social media aspect of my role, posting and utilizing hashtags and recognizing what's trending via the internet and really supporting my efforts on the more traditional public relations front.
Hmm. Audience members, if you have any questions, we'll take them at the end. Feel free to tweet them in or to ask them right here in the comments, in the questions section. You mentioned, Emily, an interesting thing, which is who's coming and sort of catering to that. Who is coming? Who is coming to your resort?
Yeah, so 76% of our leisure guests comes from Los Angeles. So that is our key feeder market. We also see a lot of Texans. Texas is a big feeder market for us, as well as the Pacific Northwest. We have some direct flights into Santa Barbara Airport, which help us, get some others in. From an international standpoint, we have a huge presence in the UK, and I think that that's really attributed to the brand fidelity in the UK with Four Seasons as well as Canada. Four Seasons is a Canadian brand. Our headquarters are in Toronto, so we have a large amount of Canadian loyalists coming to visit us.
Fascinating. And 76% LA, wow. That's great. There are some that say PR and marketing will fully merge by the year 2022. Do you believe that?
Um, I do to a certain extent. I think that, the structure within Four Seasons is really interesting in that my role works directly with our director of marketing role. And that director of marketing oversees sales, reservations, revenue, PR, and digital. Um, it's a really interesting, marketing is a really, not one person I think has ever told me that they think marketing is the same thing. Marketing is so broad. So I do think that market PR does fall within the marketing basket. And I think that as we are looking towards more of a digital and .com presence, and that more and more clients are interested in page views and unique monthly visitors and things like that, that marketing and PR are going to continue to merge because it's just sort of a natural progression, especially with social media. So I do think so. I think that there is a natural, I'm already sort of seeing this merge happen. What it'll look like in 2022, I don't know. But I know as print media continues to, decline, and we're losing some of our, great print publications, publicists like myself are having to understand what, what PR and marketing, what are the differences, and what is pay for play nowadays? Are you, with influencer marketing and all that? It's such a loaded question. It's so hard to answer. But yes, the short of it is yes, I definitely think so.
Well, it's great to hear that your coordinate or integrated marketing communications, let's put it that way, effort is in fact integrated and working well. And you're right. As traditional media dies, it becomes very tricky to distinguish. I mean, what is a YouTuber? Is that where do they fall in that? Things are blending, things are merging. It's a fascinating time. How do you approach media relations, specifically building relationships with key editors and outlets?
Yeah, so my approach has always been from a conversational standpoint. The first thing that I do before anything is I look up who I'm pitching. Who are they? What are their interests? What have they written? What is their beat? Knowledge is power, and it's super important to know who you're talking to and if they'd even be interested in what you have to share. I approach it from a very conversational standpoint. I'm very relaxed in my approach, sometimes maybe too relaxed, but I've found that developing relationships with editors and key media contacts is just like developing relationships in life. It's a give and take relationship. Everyone has a job to do, and providing the most applicable information for them, really serving as a resource, is important. And less is more. There are hundreds, thousands of media outlets, and if you're targeted in your approach and thoughtful, it seems to have worked really well for me.
You just raised an interesting point there at the end, which is, although traditional media, some of it anyways, is on the way out, there's more media than there ever was before. As you mentioned, there's thousands of outlets, and that's not even counting influencers and other sort of gray areas. How do you remain focused and sort of avoid the noise and focus on the signals?
Yeah, I think being guided by a really good PR plan is very important. We are always looking at, 4 or 5 key objectives for a year and trying to do our best to execute them. So by being targeted in your strategy, you inevitably are targeted in your outreach. This year, what's really important for us is regional fly-to markets. So we're placing a lot of emphasis on those regional publications. Another huge focus for us remains Los Angeles. Los Angeles was a huge focus last year. It'll continue to be a huge focus this year. So we have a great plan in place. Usually by September 15th, we're working on that now, and then that really guides the rest of our year.
Okay, how smooth. And it really is. Some hotels work with YouTubers, Instagrammers, and other social media influencers. Is that a priority for you?
Absolutely. We create a list of influencers, YouTubers, and social media key targets every year. So at this point, that list just continues to grow. And a majority of how we vet those is by looking at using certain tools like Social Blade that show us who's engaging with them, who is their audience, and then recognizing whether or not that's a key audience for us. A lot of times we have we're vetting influencers that come to us, but we also are outreaching to them to see how we can tap into their audience and if it makes sense for us. So absolutely, they're a big priority.
It's great to hear that you're using Social Blade and certain other tools because I remember this must have been 2 years back listening to a panel about influencer marketing, influencer relations, and half of the panel was saying this stuff doesn't work. Someone can have a big audience, but it has nothing to do with us. And it's a pleasure to see now tools come out where you can say, okay, I don't necessarily need the person with 40 million followers. I just need the person who has the audience we're looking for.
That's exactly right.
So that's great. Let's talk about something very unique and special to your company as a whole, which is Four Seasons Private Jet. This is a unique way to travel the world and has generated a lot of press. Can you walk us through this special experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So the private jet experience is a really great example of sort of the direction that Four Seasons is going with its core brand belief. We want to curate experiences, and we want to showcase the people behind our brand. We are who our people are, and I think that Four Seasons is recognizing that a key differentiator for us in a market filled with fantastic luxury hospitality brands is our people, our service, and that's really our core. So the private jet experience allows people to have a curated experience with Four Seasons that and meet not only to see beautiful places and things, but to meet some of the really core people behind our brand. We had a Four Seasons journey. The journeys within private jet are catered to provide a step-by-step experience in different locations, whether that be the Taj Mahal or the Serengeti or swimming in the Maldives. It's so that you can experience Four Seasons in a way that nobody else can, and that experiences are really continue to guide our brand philosophy.
You know, that sounds really fun. It sounds fun, sort of hopping from property to property, getting that Four Seasons service on the plane, but at the same time still interacting with the Taj Mahal, with the rest of the world. So rather than being isolated, just traveling the world in style.
Absolutely.
Santa Barbara is a vacation destination for celebrities from both LA and around the world. Is it safe to assume that these um, people typically seek privacy, not publicity on vacation?
Absolutely. So Montecito proper, where the resort is located, is a paparazzi-free zone. We You are not allowed to be a paparazzi within the city of Montecito. So a lot of celebrities are attracted to the destination, not to mention the fact that, in the property's history, we had the Kennedys on their honeymoon, Bing Crosby, Zsa Zsa Gabor, all members of our exclusive Coral Casino Beach and Cabana Club, which is available and accessible for Four Seasons Resort the Biltmore guests. So we are absolutely a old Hollywood hangout and a new Hollywood hideaway. We provide a lot of privacy, and we're very discreet because I think a lot of us are from Los Angeles, and if you live in LA, seeing a celebrity is sort of commonplace. So I know that the resort finds a lot of pride in not not getting too excited, recognizing that they're people and that they're there to get away from it all.
You bring up an interesting point. First of all, well, it's amazing that your history of celebrities goes back to sort of your classical 20th century, the biggest stars, the Kennedys, Zsa Zsa Gabor, some of these other people, but also that You're right. As a whole, Angelinos or people from Los Angeles are pretty good about giving celebrities their space and treating them just like anybody else.
Hmm.
Four Seasons has a unique structure as a company in that each resort, and correct me if I'm wrong, is individually owned. However, the company is heavily involved, the corporate side, in the management and operations of each resort. Uh, how much coordination is there between yourself and your colleagues in PR and marketing positions at other resorts and across the company?
Yeah, so you're absolutely correct. Four Seasons are all individually owned. Some owners do own multiple properties. Um, the model is fantastic because what you really get is such a diverse group of people coming together with similar managerial values. So you're looking at someone like Mr. Warner versus someone like or like the Dell family that owns the property in Maui. Their interests and their desires and what they'd like to see for their property is very different. So working with the other directors of public relations, you find they're going through different things that we can all learn from, whether those are they're being their praises are being sung for a campaign that they did for a restaurant on property, whether their bar rates, they're having an exceptional summer and their rate is through the roof, and how is that happening, and what is the owner commanding or asking or discussing that's creating such an excellent summer or such a great campaign. So there is this nothing, everything is constantly moving and changing, and there's always a place to go to ask questions that you and the answer might be something you never would have thought of. So there's a lot of coordination, it's a lot of discussions, but it's colleague to colleague, and it's a team, and we're all sort of there to help each other, but acknowledging that we're not always aligned in our goals and our strategies.
Wow, that's really special to be able to be decentralized, coordinate when you need to, but at the same time to be able to take on your own initiatives.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, and audience members, please keep sending in those questions. We'll start taking them in a few minutes here. You can either do that via the questions section right here in GoToWebinar, or of course by tweeting in questions and adding the hashtag PR. Emilie, how is travel PR and PR in general different today? You got into it a little bit, but maybe you could expand on how travel PR and public relations in general is different from today from, let's say, 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Sure, yeah. I think the main difference is really just the amount of the importance that's placed on social media. We are, I would say, social media and traditional PR outlets are equally as important, which for someone like myself is a little scary because social media is a whole new world. I would also say that I think that there is a huge understanding from the client perspective or the owner perspective now for the importance of the internet. When I started in PR, print media was gold. Print was gold. And I'm slowly starting to see a shift where owners, clients are recognizing how important online hits are, and how press hits on the internet really do have a direct ROI, whereas before it just didn't feel like there was any acknowledgement. So I'm definitely seeing that the education via the client and owner is happening, and that's changing and opening up a lot of doors for the publicist.
You're right. I remember that back around 2008 when people overvalued print media versus digital media, and yet there was no frame of reference. There was no telling that this stuff would what a fascinating change, and that must be a pleasure to be aligned with ownership, with management, and them really understanding the kinds of stories you can tell and just what you can do with the digital medium.
Yep.
And how do you think the travel industry will evolve over the next 5 years? How do you see that happening?
Yeah, I just continue to see that growing. Internet presence. I also think that there are going to be we're going to find a lot more ways to seek ROI and showcase return on investment, whether that be from an influencer standpoint or a digital media standpoint. There is a real need to quantify PR and understand what the value of a certain trade opportunity is. And I only see um, more and more companies and more applications that are helping us publicists, defend our work, so to speak, and showcase that what we do isn't up in the clouds. It is tangible, and that while awareness, a specific pitch or a specific out-of-pocket experience doesn't always directly correlate to a return on investment, in the future, this overall brand awareness is important, and it shapes the identity of your concept, your brand, your establishment.
Hmm. And let's take a few audience member questions here. So Emily, the first question is, do you have any tips for boutique hotels well, let me reread that. Do you have any tips for boutique hotels in their PR efforts?
Yeah, so I've worked with a lot of boutique properties prior to joining Four Seasons, and I actually found that sometimes it depends on where the media, the sort of the temperature of the media. Sometimes those boutique properties are easier to pitch because they can get more creative. We worked with a boutique property out in Carmel called La Playa Carmel, and it was one of my favorite properties to pitch. They had an incredible amount of creativity, and they would instill some unique programs that were easy to execute because they were only about 35 rooms. So they could get great initiatives set up, like they did a cookies and milk hour right at the time. That was a really that was a great pitch, and it got so much press locally, and we also did we were able to create a really interesting wedding shoot where with a boutique property we were able to have the bride in really unique locations, and then went and pitched all the bridal publications and got a lot of weddings. So I think it's about being creative, being very strategic, knowing your audience, and if you're in an agency, a lot of times an insider trick I'll share is I would lead sometimes with a bigger name. So if you have a client that has a blue chip client that has a name, and you're pitching a smaller property that might not be known, well, maybe you start the subject line with Four Seasons yacht blah blah blah, and I also wanted to share a really unique initiative coming out of XX property, because sometimes the name will just get the email opened, and then once they hear how cool your unique initiative is at your small boutique property, they'll bite.
Right, that leverage. That's really interesting. And you've heard some of the guests we've had, and these travel journalists can get anywhere from 100 pitches a week all the way up to 500. And you're right that easily over half the battle is just getting them to take a look at it.
Exactly.
Another question here. How do you ensure that influencers are family friendly?
Ooh, gosh, that's tough. We definitely think about that. How do I ensure that they're family friendly? Well, I mean, we do our due diligence on our end to really look through their previous posts, searching them, making sure that, sometimes I'll tap into my colleagues at other properties and ask if they've ever worked with them. I'm we're very family friendly. Our property is very family friendly. However, we're also a very romantic destination, and we see a lot, weekend getaways. So we are a little bit more flexible. We like, we don't mind if somebody's, got a little bit of a skimpy bikini on, or, it really depends on that property. But I also just blatantly tell them via email, unfortunately we don't, we're not okay with this or this. I'm very open and honest, especially if we're offering trade, what we're comfortable with. And if you're really very sensitive to it, you can always get a contract together and make sure that they're, signing something that says there's no nudity or anything like that.
You just raised an interesting point, or an obvious, a very good point. An open and honest relationship, just like with the press, also being open and honest with influencers, so that there aren't misunderstandings. And as you said, you can, of course, create a contract if you need to. But can you maybe expand a little bit on influencer relations and any other tips you might have?
Sure, yeah, influence relations, I think, really, my recommendation would be to create a list of the really the key influencers that you want to engage with, and then come up with a strategy as to how to invite them, and what makes sense to them. I think a lot of the influencers that we have on property come to us, which really isn't a great strategy, right? We don't want to just be vetting all these influencers that are requesting things from us. We want to have a strategy and a plan to engage with them. I am lucky in that we have a beautiful property that I am happy to extend a stay or an experience depending on that particular influencer. But if you don't have that, I think it's about really understanding, creating that relationship, just like a media contact, and recognizing what interests them, what they like, and curating that experience for them.
Okay, that's good advice. And we have a question about weddings. Do you focus at all on weddings and wedding PR of sorts?
Yeah, so I don't know if everyone on, and the audience feels this as well, but I found that a lot of bridal publications are moving towards the pay for play model. So my weddings outreach has gotten more and more narrow. I have found that a lot of platforms like Venue Report or Carrots and Cake, for a very little spend, you can get a beautiful profile up, and it does seem to attract interest, or at least is a great place for you to point to if someone is looking to write about your property from a wedding standpoint. I do target bridal publications. I love doing editorial shoots with brides, and we recently were in negotiations to do one with Brides Magazine. But I have found that the influencers are a really wonderful way to user-generated content is fantastic for wedding outreach. So if you've got a bride or a wedding and they're willing to sign a user-generated content contract where you're able to utilize their images, iPhone images, real images, that really helps. And then, using that via your social media channels as well.
Right, because that content is so Instagrammable, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And we have a question about LA. So someone is saying, sounds like LA is big for you guys. How do you compete with all of the other pitches and noise in LA? Essentially, I think the question is, how do you compete for attention?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, there is so much competition, and we do our best to be humble and recognize that we're not the end all be all, and that there are wonderful properties in Santa Barbara like Belmond, El Encanto, and the Goodland, and the Californian, and Bacara, that are offering exceptional experiences. So we're not I'm not always trying to get above the noise. Sometimes I'm just trying to get in it.
Hmm.
Talk honestly about what we have. Be very, be very forthright about the experiences that we offer, and really recognize that competition is a positive. If there is a light on the destination, or if there is a noise about a specific region, we are a part of that story. And what is our piece of the pie? So I love Los Angeles. It's where I work. It's where I'm born. I was born here. Um, I I think it's an incredible city, a very dynamic city, and I think Santa Barbara is the ideal getaway. It's a wonderful place to live. It's a wonderful place to enjoy, and I hope that we continue to have compelling and interesting stories that sort of are within the noise, the greater noise of that the media are always sort of inundated with.
And how much do you focus on travel media versus other types of media, such as you mentioned, bridal and other types of media?
That's a great question. And at this time, at this moment, I am really, really focused on in-flight publications. It's something that we are, in-flight publications are super important for us. It's a very captive audience. And with new flights coming into Santa Barbara Airport all the time, we are focused on in-flights and private jet publications. We see a lot of return when we're pitching regional publications in Los Angeles. So Angelino, Los Angeles Magazine, Los Angeles Times. Travel is always going to be important. Travel and Leisure, Condé Nast Traveler, FAR. Those are always going to be top A-list outlets for us. But I definitely have a very broad reach, and it runs the gamut.
It's interesting that you're focusing on in-flight magazines because there are some who are saying on the traditional side. So in other words, not a magazine's website, but the hard copy magazine that because of that captive audience, in-flight magazines and various membership associations like the AARP, it seems like they have the strongest readership because of that captive audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you bring up a great point. Like Westways has been a really key focus for us. We'll be featured twice in Westways Magazine, AAA's publication, which makes sense because we have so many drive-to guests, and that yeah. I mean, the captive audience is fantastic. I find that from a print perspective, that's really important.
And let's see here. Okay, we have 2 minutes left, so audience members, I think we'll close the questions at this point. Emilie, thanks so much for your time. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap things up here?
No, I think we're all set. Thank you so much. And my email, I don't know if my email is up, but you're welcome to. My email is on the press room page of Four Seasons Santa Barbara, Four Seasons the Resort, the Biltmore Santa Barbara's page. So please feel free to email me if you have any questions or are in the area.
Wonderful. And Emilie, thanks again for your time. Thanks for your insights. You had so many great quotes and, interesting comments both about the industry, the travel industry as a whole, hospitality, as well as media relations and influencer relations. So just want to thank you on behalf of everyone in today's event, and of course streaming on YouTube, for your time and all of your wisdom.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon. Bye.